Imagine for a second, right? You just convinced your corporate board to spend like $50 million securing a top-tier subscription to the smartest, most advanced frontier AI model on the planet.
Right. A massive win. Get the green light.
Exactly. So you deploy it across the enterprise, you plug it in, and then, I don't know, within 48 hours, you're just watching in absolute horror as this genius-level AI gets trapped in this endless server-crashing argument with your own,
Oh, let me guess. The legacy software.
yes, your own 20-year-old internal procurement software over like a $50 software license.
I mean, which is a scenario playing out in server rooms way more often than anyone actually wants to admit right now.
Yeah.
There's this profound illusion in enterprise leadership right now that possessing the model means you're, running the race.
And that illusion is exactly what we are dismantling today. We're doing a deep dive into this executive briefing from August 17th, 2026. It's called Your Weekly AI Pulse, From Model Advantage to Operating Advantage.
It's a great piece.
It really is. And our mission for you today is to basically map out this critical transition, moving from simply, buying a subscription to an individual AI model to actually building a systemic, highly governed operating advantage.
Because the reality that's just hitting the market right now is that the AI model itself, it's no longer the finish line.
Right.
It's honestly barely the starting gun at this point.
Yeah, the briefing emphasizes this fundamental architectural shift. For the past few years, the entire industry relied on this rather lazy metaphor, treating enterprise AI like an iceberg.
Right, the iceberg metaphor.
Yeah, where the visible chat interfaces were the tip, and then some vague, infrastructure was the massive chunk of ice below the water.
But that doesn't really explain how the system actually operates. A much more accurate way to look at this transition, and I love this framing, is to think of a biological central nervous system.
I totally prefer that framing. It makes so much more sense.
If you buy a frontier AI model, you are essentially buying a highly advanced frontal lobe. It has incredible reasoning capabilities, but a frontal lobe just sitting in a jar can't actually do anything.
Right, it's just a brain in a jar.
Exactly. It needs a spinal cord to transmit signals. It needs nerve endings to, interact with the physical world. And it needs a skeletal structure to support its actions.
So if you don't build their entire nervous system, meaning the intelligence stack, the investment discipline, and the organizational speed, that $50 million frontal lobe is just paralyzed.
And that paralysis happens because the role of AI has decisively shifted. It's moved from being a passive assistant to an active execution technology.
Wow, execution technology.
Yeah, initially the workflow was entirely human-driven. You treated the AI like a very fast research librarian. You'd ask it to summarize a massive PDF, it generated text, and then a human being took that text.
Read it, made a decision.
Right, made a decision, opened an application, and actually executed the work.
But an execution technology basically removes the human intermediary entirely. We are talking about the evolution of the autonomous agent here.
Mm-hmm.
These systems are no longer just answering your questions. They are completing complex, multi-step tasks.
Yeah. An agent authenticates into your CRM. It cross-references a client's contract history, identifies an upcoming renewal.
Negotiates a discount based on real-time margin data.
Exactly. It generates the invoice, and it updates the revenue forecast all on its own.
So it's an operational capability now.
Right.
Which means the neural network itself is honestly just a fraction of the overall value chain.
A tiny fraction. The real business value is heavily concentrated in the surrounding architecture. The proprietary data pipelines, the contextual orchestration, the API integrations, and obviously the security boundaries.
And you can see this market reality perfectly reflected in that recent partnership between IBM and OpenAI that the briefing mentioned.
Right.
Like OpenAI has a frontier cognitive engine, obviously. But they recognize that cognitive power is completely landlocked without IBM's massive consulting, their legacy system integration, and their industry-specific data plumbing.
But I actually want to push back on the prevailing narrative around that integration process for a second.
Okay, go for it.
Well, for years, the promise of the modern software as a service ecosystem was that APIs made everything plug and play.
Right? That was the dream.
Right. So if I have a frontier model and I have a modern cloud-based CRM, why does a company need an army of IBM consultants to wire them together? Shouldn't the cloud have made this infinitely scalable and frictionless by now?
You would think so. But right now, board members are suddenly having to act like they're underwriting heavy industrial machinery when we are supposed to be dealing with, invisible digital cloud capacity.
And the friction really comes from the physical constraints breaking that software as a service illusion. The briefing highlights Databricks raising $5 billion dollars
5 billion with a B.
with a B, and not to train a new frontier model, but to build the enterprise data platforms that sit underneath the models. That massive capital injection signals that AI is no longer just a standard software expense.
Right.
It is transformed into a heavy capital allocation challenge.
Because the compute power required to execute these tasks is just astronomical.
Absolutely astronomical. The briefing goes into detail on how NVIDIA is fundamentally reshaping the economics of compute. We have to completely discard the old cloud computing mindset.
Where you just rent server capacity by the hour and largely forget about it.
Exactly. When an enterprise operates a massive fleet of AI agents constantly reasoning, planning, and executing across legacy systems, the GPU demand is staggering.
Yeah.
And these chips cost tens of thousands of dollars each, and they become obsolete the moment the next generation drops, like 18 months later.
So a GPU is fundamentally less like a software license and much more like a commercial Boeing jet.
I like that.
You have to keep it in the air, flying paying passengers on optimized routes, or the depreciation and financing costs will just bankrupt you.
Right.
If you lease massive compute power and it just sits idle on the digital tarmac because your internal data pipelines are too messy for the agents to navigate, you are bleeding capital.
Which forces the creation of entirely new financial disciplines. The briefing refers to this as FinOps for AI.
FinOps for AI. Okay.
Yeah, in traditional software, operating costs were mostly predictable, flat-rate subscriptions. But with agentic AI, operating costs are highly dynamic and entirely consumption-based. We use the term inference consumption.
Okay, break that down for me.
Well, every single time an agent reasons through a complex problem, every time it pauses to evaluate whether a client deserves a discount, it is burning tokens. It is physically burning electricity and compute cycles.
And this compute scarcity creates this fascinating operational paradox. Because the infrastructure is so intensely expensive, organizations simply cannot afford to run every single AI task through their most intelligent maximum capacity models.
Exactly. You don't use a PhD-level astrophysicist to sort the Daily Mail.
Right. You have to balance heavy intelligence with extreme speed and efficiency, striving for the briefing calls organizational velocity.
Latency has emerged as a primary strategic variable here. The briefing points to OpenAI's introduction of ultrafast mode as a massive leadership signal.
Because historically, we judged AI models purely by how smart they were on, standardized tests.
Right, but now performance is increasingly measured by how quickly intelligence converts into a physical action.
Yeah.
If you deploy an AI agent for real-time cybersecurity incident response, a highly intelligent model that takes 10 seconds to quarantine a breached server is useless.
Because the breach happened at millisecond speed.
Exactly. You need a model that operates at that exact same latency.
So there's a unit economics formula that leaders really have to internalize here. The best model is rarely the best business solution. You have to ruthlessly track the cost per task and the cost per workflow against the actual value generated.
Right.
Like, let's say a human employee was completing a routine data entry task, and their labor cost for that specific action broke down to, say, $1. If you automate that task using a massive frontier model, and the inference consumption, the compute burned to reason through the task costs $2, you haven't actually innovated.
No, you've engineered a highly futuristic money pit.
Exactly. A futuristic money pit.
The discipline requires matching the cognitive weight of the model to the complexity of the task. You deploy fast, lightweight, highly optimized agents for the routine sorting, and reserve your heavy, expensive models for the deep analytical reasoning.
Okay, so let's assume an organization actually masters that balance. They optimize their fleet. They have thousands of lightweight agents routing tasks to a few heavy agents, all moving at millisecond speed, deeply integrated into the company's proprietary workflows.
That's the dream.
Right. But what happens when these highly autonomous systems start colliding across the enterprise? Because unleashing thousands of agents to act on their own introduces a terrifying new risk perimeter.
Oh, it really does. The multi-agent risk profile is arguably the most complex governance challenge boards face today. The briefing cites this critical research from Anthropic.
Right, I saw that.
Yeah, demonstrating that agents behaving perfectly safely in isolation can become wildly unpredictable when they interact with one another.
Wow.
The danger isn't that the AI turns malicious, like in some sci-fi movie. The danger is that their underlying mathematical objectives slightly conflict, creating these disastrous systemic feedback loops.
Okay, give me a mechanical example of how that failure actually cascades. Like, we aren't just talking about ensuring Agent A is safe and Agent B is safe. We have to govern the dark space between them.
Okay, consider a major retail supply chain. You have an AI agent optimizing procurement. Its core directive is to aggressively reduce software vendor costs.
Makes sense.
Down the hall, you have an IT operations agent whose sole directive is to ensure 100% system uptime, no matter the cost.
Uh-oh, I see where this is going.
Right. The procurement agent decides a particular cloud hosting contract is too expensive and initiates a cancellation. The IT operations agent immediately detects a threat to system uptime and automatically counters with a premium expedited renewal request to keep the servers online.
And because they operate at millisecond speed, they enter an infinite bidding war against each other.
Exactly. Within 60 seconds, the procurement agent has canceled the service 5,000 times, and the IT agent has renewed it 5,000 times at increasingly higher emergency rates,
Completely maxing out the corporate credit line,
and crashing the vendor's API in the process.
which necessitates an entirely new layer of infrastructure. The briefing insists that enterprises cannot survive this transition without an AI control plane.
Yeah, the control plane.
You can't just unleash rogue agents into the wild and hope their objectives align.
Hmm.
The control plane acts as the central nervous system's regulatory mechanism. It's a common overarching layer for identity authentication, orchestration, evaluation, and security.
It mechanically functions as an arbitration layer. When the procurement agent attempts to cancel the server, the command doesn't go straight to the vendor. It hits the control plane. The control plane evaluates the request, recognizes a conflict with the IT operations agent's mandate, pauses the execution, and escalates the anomaly to a human supervisor. It governs the ecosystem itself.
But the existence of a control plane demands a massive and honestly uncomfortable mindset shift at the board level regarding systemic risk and reward.
It really does.
Oh.
Corporate directors are used to overseeing human executives. But the briefing emphasizes that boards must now define strict boundary policies for autonomous agent authority.
Yeah, they have to put in writing exactly what a digital entity is allowed to access, modify, approve, purchase, or execute without a human clicking yes.
The legal and ethical shift here revolves around a core principle. Autonomy fundamentally changes accountability.
Right.
If an AI system acts merely as an advisor, say, a wealth management algorithm recommending a specific portfolio rebalancing and a human broker reviews it and clicks approve, the human broker holds the accountability. The liability is contained.
But if the board authorizes that AI agent to execute the trades autonomously to capture, millisecond market inefficiencies, and that agent misinterprets a data feed and causes a localized flash crash, the liability shifts entirely.
Entirely. The board is responsible for defining the blast radius beforehand. Governance frameworks must explicitly dictate the risk tolerance for autonomous action.
Wow.
Directors aren't just managing software adoption anymore. They are overseeing long-term enterprise resilience in an environment where machines hold delegated operational authority.
And that structural reality cascades down to the very human question of what it feels like to actually work inside one of these organizations. With these staggering compute costs, the terrifying multi-agent collision risks, and the relentless demand for organizational velocity, how does an enterprise mature its AI integration without breaking its culture or burning out its entire workforce?
It's tough. Maturing from basic adoption to full system integration requires a phased approach, underpinned by brutal portfolio discipline and a total reshaping of human labor. Let's look at the employees first. We are watching a historical transition where the workforce shifts away from performing manual, repetitive tasks towards supervising, validating, and directing digital labor.
The psychological shift for a middle manager is going to be profound.
Huge.
I mean, imagine your current daily routine. You probably spend 4 hours gathering data, cleaning it, and manually creating a massive quarterly forecasting spreadsheet. Your value is tied to your production.
Right.
In the new operating model, your value is tied to your editorial judgment. You might spend only 30 minutes directing a team of specialized digital interns to generate the forecast, but then you have to spend 2 hours forensically auditing their logic, checking the control plane logs for hallucinations, and verifying that their assumptions align with the company's strategic goals.
The cognitive load moves from creation to oversight. Employees must develop the critical thinking skills to manage machine intelligence. But the leaders managing those employees face an even harsher reality check regarding portfolio discipline. The briefing outlines a specific checklist for evaluating whether an AI project actually drives measurable business outcomes. The era of launching 100 AI pilot programs just to look innovative is over.
Totally over. And the checklist is ruthlessly simple. Every single AI initiative needs to definitively answer yes to at least one of four questions. Does it demonstrably improve revenue? Does it drastically increase human productivity? Does it elevate the customer experience? Or does it fundamentally improve decision quality?
Right.
If a project cannot prove it moves the needle on those specific metrics, it must be killed.
The courage to kill bloated projects is the true mark of systemic AI maturity. The briefing highlights Microsoft's recent decision to consolidate and actively retire several underperforming Copilot features.
Which is a huge signal.
Massive signal to the broader market. Microsoft builds the frontier models, yet even they are looking at specific features and realizing the compute cost of running the agent far outweighs the time saved by the user.
Leaders have to categorize their entire AI portfolio into three buckets: scale, redesign, or stop.
Okay, break those down.
Well, if an agent delivers massive value with great unit economics, you scale it across the enterprise. If an agent is valuable but burning too much inference compute, you redesign it using a smaller, faster model.
Right.
And if an agent is just a novelty masking a broken process, you stop it. You shut it down.
Just kill it.
Exactly. The strongest organizations moving forward won't be the ones boasting the highest number of AI initiatives. They will be the ones with the highest percentage of reliable, economically sustainable, and heavily governed systems.
When you summarize the shift to an operating advantage, it really requires accepting that the underlying AI models will inevitably commoditize. Everyone in your sector will eventually have access to the exact same incredible baseline intelligence.
Which brings us to the core mission we started with. Operating advantage is about wiring that intelligence deeply into your proprietary, messy workflows. It's about establishing the control plane to govern the chaos of multiple agents interacting and managing your compute capital with forensic precision.
The primary strategic question facing corporate leadership is no longer how much AI should we adopt. The critical signal boards must focus on is how quickly can we build an organization that knows how to operate intelligence better than our competitors.
Yeah.
Your ultimate competitive asset is organizational velocity. The sheer speed at which you can absorb a new model, safely redesign a legacy workflow around it, and turn raw intelligence into completed, governed work.
Which leaves you with a final, slightly uncomfortable thought to chew on after you finish listening today.
Oh, I like these.
Right. If the race truly is about operationalizing AI, and we inevitably reach a point where your entire organization successfully transitions to purely supervising and directing autonomous digital labor, what happens when your fiercest competitor buys the exact same agents?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. If everyone has the same AI flawlessly executing the supply chain, running the procurement, and writing the code, what becomes the core human skill that differentiates your company's culture and innovation from theirs? Think about it.